morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another fine Wednesday morning. Welcome to another coffee break chat. I'm your host, James Jackson, he, they pronouns, executive producer, Light Thief Productions. We've got what I think is a fantastic show for us today. Navigating the maze of modern media in a decaying society, art must reflect decay. That's half the quote. Check out the rest of the quote in the comments. In a decaying society, art must reflect decay, but also be a healing force. Romare Bearden. Today we're going to be talking about fake news, AI and politics, local arts, IP battles. There's a local internet intellectual property battle. I almost always say internet first, and I need to stop. Media trust. And the Black Panthers Party legacy we'll talk about a little bit in honor of Black History Month. Let me find my notes here. Yeah, there we go. I also want to talk a little bit about citizen journalism involved with this because we're talking about fake news. We're talking about like real news, how news making works, and so is TikTok journalism. That kind of idea got involved after I started thinking about and discussing today's episode with our today's guest. You know him, you love him. I'm going to bring him up on screen. Victor, please introduce yourself, your pronouns, what it is you do.
Thanks, James. This is Victor Fiorillo. I am the senior reporter at Philadelphia Magazine. I'm also the manager and keyboard player for the Martha Graham Cracker Cabaret. And I'm a husband and father. I live in Deep West Philly. I say Deep West Philly because I feel like people who live near Penn think they live in West Philly, and they've never been west of 52nd Street. I am far west of 52nd Street. So grew up in the area. I've only lived elsewhere for 6 months when I had some strange adventures in New Orleans. And that's about it for me.
The Deep West Philly, you're such Deep West Philly that some South Philly born and bred folks would call you from the burbs.
I have a lot of people that think I live in the burbs. I mean, I do have a 2-car driveway. I do have a front yard. I have a backyard. But I am most definitely in Philadelphia. I'm just outside of Overbrook Farms. So Overbrook Farms is your sort of last community along Lancaster Avenue before you hit the main line. So I'm basically one block towards the city from Overbrook Farms.
Awesome.
We're row houses, and we have two bus routes that go in front of our house. But I do have a lot of friends who think I live in the suburbs or on the main line.
I mean, you look like you have a suburban life. I mean, from what you share on Facebook and, like your general demeanor towards Philly news. I mean, you cover a lot of Philly news. You do a lot and we were just talking what's your new thing you do every week? You publish what'd you say, 2 articles?
Monday through Thursday,
Monday.
I publish a column called Philly Today,
Uh-huh.
which is a combination of original reporting and what we call aggregation plus. So, picking up on a story that WHYY covered, giving them full credit for it, trying to advance it in some way, or at least put our own, Philly Mag spin on it. So I run that Monday through Thursday around usually 11 a.m. That process involves myself and actually 3 editors, if you can believe that. So I think when we start getting into talking about citizen journalism and fake news, I think a lot of my haters at least, think that I'm just off ranting whatever I want on the Philly Mag website. What they should know is that there are actually 2 editors who have approved this, and then our senior copy editor to make sure that I don't sound like the high school and college dropout that I am.
Yeah, no, That's this show actually. If anybody wants to hate on Victor, or like hate the idea that somebody can just rant about whatever the fuck they want, that's me, guys. I don't have any editors. I publish this all myself, and I have no limits, no advertisers to answer to. The only thing I have to answer to is whether or not Google's gonna like derank me, and I don't really care. So yeah. So when we're talking citizen, let's talk a little bit, real quick, about a related topic that's near and dear to my heart. Um, Education. Journalism is, to me, it's education for adults. Like every day, you're as a journalist, you're trying to, educate your reader base. Give them a little information. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know what you do. That's what I do. I try to, bring people information that they might learn something from. I don't know, affect the world somehow. Maybe I'm. Is that too big brained of me? Like, is that what you do as a journalist? Are you worried about that sort of thing?
Oh, sure. I mean, part of what I do, for one thing, I do a lot of different things at Philly Mag, right? So we talked about the daily column that I do, and certainly I try to bring people important information in that. I'm not somebody who covers I'm not the Steve Keeley type. Like I don't cover every single person who's been arrested. I don't cover every single shooting. I don't cover house fires, generally speaking. But I do cover a lot of important things in that column. Then in the magazine itself, I do what I hope are entertaining, interesting, thought-provoking interviews with local celebrities or celebrities. For instance, my next big one is uh, Devane Joy Randolph from The Holdovers, who's probably going to win the Oscar. And my current one in the February issue is with Governor Josh Shapiro, who, of course, a lot of people are talking about him as a future presidential candidate. So I just want to give you the idea of the breadth of kind of things that I do. I also do like some salacious, gossipy kind of stuff that I think I used to be uh, really well known for. I think that since 2020, I've shifted gears quite a bit in how I report some of that stuff, and Philly Mag has shifted gears in the way that we report some stuff. I do a lot of restaurant writing and um, restaurant reporting. But yes, so I'm trying to educate people. I'd like to think that I'm also partially what I'm doing is entertaining them. And one nice thing about working at, say, Philadelphia Magazine and magazines and city magazines in general is that we're encouraged to have voice, right?
Right.
You know, people so often criticize one of their criticisms is, well, you clearly have a bias, you have so much attitude in this piece, and it's like, no, I'm not writing for the Associated Press, and I'm not doing a wonky election recap for the Inquirer. I'm writing for a magazine that is, one of its things is having a voice and having a point of view. So if you're looking for um, a completely non-biased point of view that I don't think really exists, and you're looking for just basic facts and figures, you're not coming to me for that.
Right. You're not coming to me for that either. So, if I try to, I try to be as non-biased as possible. Just because I try to have an open mind for information that challenges my preconception. Um, I think that's, kind of a duty of anybody who investigates themselves, investigates reality in any sort of way, whether they be a journalist or an artist or a playwright or so anybody doing anything having to do with production. I think it behooves us to kind of be open to things that challenge our preconceptions. But that's a little riding the high horse, I suppose. Um,
No,
but
I don't think you're wrong, and I get challenged quite a bit by my editors, my colleagues, and my readers. I get a lot of mail. I will say that while my impression is that most, quote unquote, established journalists in the in Philadelphia don't respond a lot to readers who might send them hate mail, or just readers in general. I make it a point to respond to, everybody I possibly can. And I'll tell you that I've had some great dialogue struck up when somebody sends me an email calling me, a fucking asshole, an idiot because of something I wrote. And I respond to them with a polite email just saying, thanks so much for reaching out. I explained to them sort of where I'm coming from. And I say to them, I'm happy to have a difference of opinion with you. I just wish we could be a little more respectful about it. And I can't tell you how many people who start off with the you're a fucking idiot, asshole point of view hate mail towards me that we wind up not becoming friends, but we wind up having some form of dialogue. And actually, some of those people wind up bringing me stories down the line, right? Because they know, like, I respect them as a human being. I might not agree with them, but I respect that they, can have a point of view.
I have
Now,
I
I
have
don't respond to everybody because some people are just vicious. I mean, I've literally gotten
okay.
death threats and they go right to the police, but you know what I mean. The
Yeah,
average
no,
hate.
that's the. I mean, I get a lot of hate. I don't. I have a few folks who contact me and they're nice or they're trying to be even handed. I get a lot of hate. And I just kind of ignore it. Even the death threats. You guys can feel free to send me death threats. It's not really. I don't consider you serious. Um, I'm not one of those people that's easily intimidated. I think is the general idea, but I find that the people sending hate my way, uh, I guess when it gets to hate, I don't feel like it's worth investigating that conversation any longer. Um, because there's nothing in my experience, there's nothing left there. There's nothing left there to converse about. There's, I mean, your experience would say say the opposite, I suppose, and that's perfectly valid. I just, I've never been able to have a conversation with somebody who objectively hates everything I stand for. um, but what I wanted to talk about in education is the African American Heritage Museum of Southern New Jersey. And interestingly, this ties into hate. Just there's a concerted effort amongst folks who dislike the idea of they're for lack of a better word, they call it woke. They just dislike the idea of progress in social circles, social relationships, I guess. Um, and they've been making a pretty good concerted effort to push back against things like education about racial issues or actual systemic injustice. So the African American Heritage Museum has teamed up with middle school classes to have fellow students teach the complex topics so that they avoid the controversy of the school teaching the complex topics. What do you think of that tactic?
Well, I think it's a great tactic in lieu of the teachers actually being able to teach critical race theory and the related topics that you're talking about. But ultimately, it would sure would be nice if we could teach our students the truth and not have to have other students. I mean, having other students weigh in with their own life experiences is great, but what's going on in some of the school districts, including some local ones, some very local ones, a lot in Bucks County, is definitely troubling. Although I think things have started shifting in Bucks County, but it's certainly been alarming. And also, there are battles like that going on all over the region. I know Ocean City, New Jersey has been having some issues of late. Kind of like what's been going on in Bucks County with parents trying to take over the school board to eliminate certain topics. Yeah. So, but I think novel approaches like the one you're referring to with the museum, are a great temporary solution. But we obviously have a more long-term problem, and I think what, depending on what happens this coming November, who knows what's going to happen.
I,
Um,
Speaking of this coming November, why are we running the two worst candidates for president that are available?
it's certainly embarrassing. It's a sad statement on the state of American society and politics that these are the two people we have to choose from. I mean, we're probably going to have other people to choose from, like maybe a Kennedy, and who knows how that's going to.
The third party candidates are a joke. I mean, and they're worse, objectively worse than the two can. I mean, Kennedy is I feel like I've met him. I feel like he's the same age as Trump or Biden. And Trump and Biden are only separated from each other by a couple of years, so it's not like, like all this old man stuff is exclusive to the Democrats. But anyway, I don't want to delve too deep into national politics this week. I just, I this has been a question that's been on my mind a lot the last couple of weeks. Like what the only person who could lose the election to Donald Trump is Joe Biden. The only person who could lose a national election for the Republican Party is Donald Trump. Why are these the two that we're throwing into the ring? They're literally the worst candidates, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway,
It doesn't, and I should tell you, I come from an interesting background where uh, my mom and her husband and my sister are very heavily in favor of Trump. And my wife's parents, who live in Northeast Philly, originally from India, they're heavily in favor of Trump. So, you
in
know,
this election,
oh yeah, sure.
uh,
In every election. I mean, I think my sister is caught up in the celebrity culture that surrounds Trump.
mm.
Um, and my in-laws and my mom and her husband are just like very. My mom lives in a gated community in Florida where all of the streets are named after books of the Bible. Let's put it that way. So I have a pretty interesting upbringing in that way, and holidays. Well, I think it gets back though to the idea of those emails that you get from people who don't like what you have to say, and maybe why I'm more inclined to engage with them, because I'm surrounded by people in my life who we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, but we have to figure out a way to get along with each other. Actually, I was just reminded the other day in 2016 when Trump was running. Mo Rocca came to my mom's house she was living in New Jersey at the time. Mo Rocca came to my mom's house and sat down with me and a family psychologist for CBS Sunday Morning to talk about like what it's like when you're a family
Oh,
that,
okay.
yeah, that completely, like how you get through. It was right before Thanksgiving, and it was like, how do you get through Thanksgiving when your mom is for Trump and you're not?
And you're not.
But
Uh,
I mean, I can't believe my son just turned 18. This is his first election he can vote in, and it's just so sad to me that he has the choices that he has. He also was completely perplexed when he was filling out the voter registration form, and you have to pick a party or you can go unaffiliated, and I had to explain to him what that meant.
mhm.
And so he was unfamiliar with the idea of closed primaries, which Pennsylvania is in a very small minority of states that has closed primaries, which is something I think we really need to take a serious look at.
Yeah, no, we really do need to take a serious look at it. And ranked choice voting would probably help some of the lack of engagement and lack of ability to really drive engagement of the electorate. But we have next week We have our guest will be Councilmember Gilmore Richardson and or I'm sorry, Councilmember Brooks. And I want to talk with her about third party stuff and like how to really engage. Like, there's some interesting numbers around the last election. I know we're getting off on a tangent, but yeah, there's some interesting numbers around the last election. On if you look at like the vote, and the differences between like say Isaiah Thomas, the mayor's office, and a couple of the other things, and like if you look at like the Bilal election, the sheriff's office as well, you can really kind of start to tease out from those numbers at least what I think is a real indication of people who are actually engaged in election politics and understanding who they're voting for versus the just mass of people that vote. And it seems like it's really only like 1 or 2% of people in Philadelphia, anyway, that are really engaged and understand who they're voting for. And we can go into like the Bilal story, which we've covered a couple of weeks in a row here, but I still find it interesting. I find it interesting that, you know, Sheriff Bilal, as you noted in your story, your story on Philly Mag, as I've noted a bunch of times, there's a lot of red flags to Sheriff Bilal. Like a lot of questions come up when you look into her both her history and things that have happened during her terms in office. That like most places you wouldn't survive as an elected official those kinds of you know I don't even know what you want to call them, controversies,
Scandals, controversies,
scandals.
FBI investigations.
Yeah.
It's kind of a joke, and it's sad that it is. You talked about percentages. I think that people unfortunately just read headlines, so they don't know all the details, right? We know for a fact that I see this all the time, people comment on social media on stories that we write, and it's clear by what they're commenting that they haven't actually read the story. So you could have all this great enterprise reporting about Sheriff Rochelle Bilal. How many people see those headlines? And then how many people who do see those headlines click on the story, and how many people who click on the story actually read the whole story, and how many of those comprehend what they're reading? So you have the uneducated public, but then you also have the people who do know about things. And what was it in 1903 that Lincoln Steffens wrote his famous essay that Philadelphia is, quote, corrupt and contented?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't think much has changed since then. I don't think much is going to change. And you're going to continue to have people like Rochelle Bilal in office. I mean, Rochelle Bilal, and we could go down a list of, lots of other people. I once did a report, this was going back a while, but I think I figured out that we hadn't gone, it was either 2.5 or 3.5 years for the last 50 years without a member of city council or city council at large being accused of a crime. I mean, think about that for a second. Now, they weren't all convicted, but they were
Well,
accused.
so here's the difference to me between and this might have interplay between also trust and media. In say the 90s, when I was growing up and first becoming aware of politics, I went to high school in the 90s, so that dates me, but also I'm not that old. In the 90s, like if there was a scandal, you dropped out of politics. Like like if the even in corrupt Philadelphia in the 90s, if a sheriff's son had been found to sell a gun to the FBI that was collected in evidence 3 weeks earlier in a school shooting, usually that would have meant that the sheriff would resign and then somebody else would be sheriff. Like, am I mistaken, or am I like rose-colored glassing this?
I think you're mostly right. Things have definitely changed, and people seem to operate with more impunity than they did before. Although there's also a history, and I can't quite remember names, of politicians in Philadelphia who have, clearly done stuff wrong, and they still come back and, um, they still have careers in politics. And I'm not talking about current politicians who've been acquitted of charges, even though they still have a stench of impropriety surrounding them. But if you look back in history in Philadelphia, there are indeed politicians who, have they've done shit wrong and they still go on to, have a good career. Well, a Philadelphia mayor who bombed his own city and then won re-election not long thereafter, I think it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
But then there are also people who've been, clearly have done things wrong, where they still have a career in politics resolved. Their